18 after 4, we have been talking for some time as well about the international border closures, the impact that's having on our university sector, costing billions and billions of dollars. Well, the data has now been crunched and it paints a very bleak picture with more information. Grafa data analyst Dan Petrie joins me live on the program. G'day, Dan.
A very good evening to you, Ollie. How are you?
I'm all right. The international student enrolments have dropped by 16% in the 5 months to June compared to the same period last year. Our unis are bleeding, Dan.
I can tell you they're bleeding. I also teach in the university sector, Ollie, and it is a very, very difficult operating environment, particularly in the tertiary sector. Now, just on those numbers, right, we often talk about the university sector. Now, there's 1.6 million students at any given time across postgraduate and undergraduate courses. More than a third come from overseas. So that just gives you an indication just how big we're talking now in terms of export value of the education sector, including private colleges, including schools, including English language courses. $23 billion last year, and there is very, very little that the Australian government can do currently to arrest that decline. But that is a significant hit to the Australian economy. It also is a very big hit in terms of also tourism numbers. A lot of these students also go around the country as well. So that's an extraordinary amount of money to be at risk, given the fact that a lot of students are now looking at places such as Cambridge and Harvard to continue further studies.
It is, isn't it? There's also those jobs as well that are dotted around the universities, or some of the casual hospitality jobs that are not filled at the moment by those 500,000 odd international students. And it's going to also see, as we've already heard, Dan, tens of thousands of university staff, casuals or contractors, who've also lost their employment.
They've lost employment. Now, the actual new enrolments coming in, they're down by as much as 47,000. So the early stage, now the ones you want to bring into the system so you can then cycle them through, obviously, it's a terrible expression, but that is what Australia is very good at doing, is producing high-quality graduates. But those jobs which are that multiplier effect, the small businesses which rely on those students coming in, the hospitality workers that they also double up and work 20 hours, they can work in any given week. So you actually have this very significant blow, particularly not just in for the country more broadly, but we're also talking about regional universities. Mm-hmm. A lot of universities aren't based in the CBD, so this does have that knock-on effect. And of course, whilst the pandemic we're dealing with is very, very serious, there is an economic cost, and that economic cost is starting to, really, take a long time to fix, given the fact that so many students, particularly, we're in a very, very competitive market with the universities overseas. This is certainly not a great look in terms of that Fortress Australia mentality, and that really is strangling international enrolments, and it might be unpopular to talk about, but we can't avoid it.
No, and there has been talk of pilot programs about bringing international students into the country, whether or not there's vaccine passports. I know that's a big debate in Europe at the moment, lots of protests as well about people being given extra privileges, Dan, if they've had both shots that other people are not given. But it's something that the Commonwealth Government and the state governments around National Cabinet will need to confront in the coming months.
Absolutely. Now, the other thing too, which, in somewhere like Western Australia, that very, very heavily reliant where you are on the university sector is very heavily reliant on those international numbers, and we do need to have some sort of pragmatism about how we do it. Look, that vaccine rollout, which people talk about, it is so critical for the obvious reasons. You talk about having a vaccine passport is really the only way to facilitate this. I'm 46, so I probably don't look it to many people. But generally speaking, I have very, very low confidence levels of being able to get a Pfizer put into my arm, because the moment I mentioned AstraZeneca, which honestly I think I'd quite happily get, but there's, again, the messaging's been quite problematic, particularly for someone in my age bracket.
Yeah, that's interesting. Atagi has a lot to answer for. Dan Petrie, Grafa data analyst. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ollie. Cheers, mate.